Okay, so let's see if your basic math skills are strong enough to solve this problem without using a calculator. All right, so what do we have here? Well, we have 3/8 times 2 squared divided by 2/3 plus 1/5. Again, we're not going to use our calculators, but we do have a multiple choice question, and let's take a look at our answers. So A is 60. B is 3/5, C is 49 over 20, and D is 9 over 7. Now, to solve this problem or to do all this math, you're definitely going to want to get a piece of paper and a pencil and write out each step, all right? So if you don't get this problem right, you can identify what you don't understand. But if you know the answer, go ahead and put that into the comment section. I'll show you the correct solution in just 1 second. And of course, I'm going to solve this problem step by step. But before we get started, let me quickly tell you who I am. My name is John, and I have been teaching middle and high school math for decades. And if you're frustrated with math, or if you really want to understand the subject, then check out my math help program at tcmathacademy.com. You can find a link to that in the description below. And if this video helps you out, or if you just enjoy this content, make sure to like and subscribe, as that definitely helps me out. All right, so once again, there is no kind of time limit here. So if it takes you 10 minutes to get this problem right, or maybe 50 seconds, it doesn't make a difference. Just go at a pace that you think, is comfortable for you. But let's see if you can really solve this problem without a calculator. All right, so what is the solution? Well, the solution is C, which is 49 over 20. Now, if you did not use a calculator and you got this right, well, that is fantastic, and you definitely got yourself a happy face and A plus. And if you're like, hey, Mr. YouTube Math Man, I'm totally lost here. I must be bad in math. No, there is no such thing as anyone that is bad in math, right? So if you're thinking that, yes, I'm bad in math, no, that's not the case. What you need to do is just learn math skill by skill. All right, so let's go ahead and get into this right now. And again, if you really want to understand what you know and don't know in terms of this problem, you want to first try this. Get a piece of paper out and a pencil and just write out each step. So as I go through these steps, if you're like, hey, I don't really understand how to add fractions or don't understand powers, well, then you know what you need to work on. All right, so first things first. First, we do have a math multiple choice question. So for those of you that still have to take math tests, you might be saying, hey, Mr. YouTube Math Man, what should I do on a math exam if I have a question I don't understand? Well, I'm going to tell you to guess, right? I don't know. This answer looks pretty good. So you might just, answer with B, right? That looks like a fraction. Maybe there's some fractions. There's fractions in the problem, so maybe our answer has fraction. And of course, three of these problems do have fractions. This one is not a fraction, so just take a guess. The worst thing you could do is leave a question blank, but of course, we want to actually know the math to solve this problem. Okay, so what do we need to do here? Well, we're going to need to know how to work with fractions, right? So we have to know how to add fractions. We're going to have to deal with division, fractions. You're going to have to know something about powers, but we also have multiplication, division, and addition. These are what we call mathematical operations. Okay, so you're going to have to know something about the order of operations, and I think that's a good place to start. So let's go down here and take a look at the order of operations. Now, this little acronym, PEMDAS, is our checklist to take the correct order of operations. I'll explain this in just 1 second. But first, let's go ahead and give you a quick pop quiz on the order of operations. All right, so without using a calculator, what is the correct answer to this problem right here? We have 10 divided by 2 times 5. Okay, so go ahead and put your answer into the comment section and let's see how well you understand the order of operations. Now, if you answered with 1, unfortunately, that is not correct. So some of you might be saying, what are you talking about, Mr. YouTube Math Man? That's right, because look, 2 times 5, that's 10, and then 10 divided by 10 is 1, so you must be wrong, Mr. YouTube Math Man. Well, listen, 2 times 5 is in fact 10. 10 divided by 10 is in fact 1. All right, so I would say each kind of these steps, these sub steps are correct. But what is wrong? Well, what's wrong here is the order you did the problem. All right, so the correct order is starting with division. All right, so that would give us what, 10 divided by 2, which of course is 5. 5 times 5 is 25. All right, so 25 is the correct answer. And if you didn't get lucky and you understand why you have to do division first in this situation and not multiplication, well, that indicates to me that you've either been watching some of my videos or you just understand the order of operations. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into this right now so this is crystal clear, and then we're going to, of course, use this to solve this problem. All right, now before I tell you what this acronym means, let me give you a cute little saying that will help you remember PEMDAS, and that is, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. One more time, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Now, I don't know what Aunt Sally did, but we thank her for her contributions to mathematics, and let's go ahead and get into this right now. All right, so the first thing here is P, which is parentheses. So in other words, let me just kind of back up actually. This is a checklist, okay? These letters obviously stand for something, and we're going to work this checklist from left to right. So the P stands for parentheses. So it's parentheses in a math problem if you have them, or brackets like this, or brackets like this. Technically, this is what we call grouping symbols. So if you have like 10 times 3 divided by 2 times 7, well, I can make all sorts of different math problems here depending upon how I group the numbers. So in other words, if I put parentheses here, that's one problem. I have to start here first. That's what the P stands for in PEMDAS. Or maybe I put parentheses right here, or I group these numbers together. Well, then I have to start here. Okay, so obviously parentheses in a math problem does have a huge impact in terms of the order of in which you do the problem. Now, let's suppose you have parentheses and then brackets like so. How do you handle a situation like that? You start with the innermost parentheses and then work yourself out. Okay, so that is what P stands for in PEMDAS. Now, here's the thing. Sometimes a math problem will not have any parentheses, so you just kind of have to check that. If it doesn't have that, you just move on to the next thing, which of course is E. All right, so E stands for exponents, but you could think of this as powers. So if you have 2 to the third power, this is a power in mathematics. And it means what? Well, it means take 2 and multiply it by itself 3 times. So 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. So this little number right here is called an exponent. Okay, that's an exponent in math. The big number down here is called the base. The entire thing is a power. So E stands for exponents. If you have any exponents, this is what you're going to do next. Now, of course, not every math problem is going to have powers or exponents, but if it does have exponents, this is the next step you're going to take. All right, so MD, A, and S stand for multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. And this is where people get highly confused when it comes to the order of operations, because some of you might be saying, hey, Mr. YouTube Math Man, look at your own little checklist here. It says you got to do multiplication first. In other words, let's go back to this problem. We have 10 divided by 2 times 5. So you might be saying, hey, Mr. YouTube Math Man, look, you got to do multiplication. Even your own checklist says that. So what's going on here? Well, unfortunately, this is not the way PEMDAS works. So the next thing you have to do is multiplication or division. In other words, if you have multiplication and division in your math problem, okay, in other words, you have both of these operations, you're going to do whatever you see first from left to right. Okay, so here we see division before multiplication from left to right. That's why we do this first. And don't feel bad if you didn't understand this, because quite frankly, I don't think this is stressed well enough in most textbooks. I mean, it is taught, but this is a very common error, so you really got to look out for this. But anyways, this is how the order of operations works with multiplication and division. So this is why our answer is 25 and not 1. And addition and subtraction work the same way, all right? Okay, so again, you're going to handle any multiplication and division and then move on to any addition and subtraction. Okay, so let's go ahead and put this knowledge to work. Now, if you don't understand how to deal with fractions, I'm obviously going to be doing a bunch of fraction work in this video solution. But if you don't understand anything, I will tell you how you can improve in any particular skill. All right, so here is our math problem, and you want to be thinking about PEMDAS. So is there any parentheses in our problem? No, I don't see any. Do we have any exponents? Do we have any powers? Yes, indeed we do. So we're going to start right here, and you're going to write one step at a time, right? So we have 3/8 times 2 squared divided by 2/3 plus 1. Just take one step. Okay, here's your problem. Take one step, then take a look at your PEMDAS and take another step. In other words, don't try to do too many steps at once. Okay, so we have 2 squared. 2 squared means what? Take 2 and multiply it by itself. So 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, so that is our first step. Okay, so what do we have to do now? Well, we have to go back to PEMDAS. So do we have any parentheses? No. Do we have any powers? Yes, we took care of those. Now, do we have any multiplication and division? Yes, we have division and multiplication. So what am I going to do first? Well, what comes first from left to right? Well, I see the multiplication. Okay, so I'm going to do the multiplication first from left to right. And this is important because some of you may not have understood this part of the order of operations or PEMDAS and just got lucky, right? You're like, yeah, I got to do multiplication always, always before division. Well, no, you're doing this because this is what you see first from left to right. Okay, so now we have to figure out what 3/8 times 4 is equal to. So how do you multiply fractions? Well, we're going to talk about that right now. So a couple of quick things here. Notice how I have this fraction written with an angled fraction bar. Nothing wrong with that. I'm going to encourage you to write fractions with a horizontal fraction bar, right? This is just going to make your life a lot easier, especially in algebra. So 3/8 is the same thing as 3/8, and we're going to multiply this by 4. Now, I want to think of 4 as a fraction, and you can think of any number as a fraction by just putting it over 1. Okay, so we have 3/8 times 4, or 4 over 1. So to multiply fractions, all we have to do is multiply the respective numerators and denominators. So the top number in a fraction is called the numerator. The bottom number is called the denominator. So when you want to multiply two fractions, you literally just multiply the respective numerators and denominators. So 3 times 4 is 12. 8 times 1 is 8. So I have 12 over 8. But here's the thing, you want to reduce and or simplify these fractions. So 4 goes into 12 3 times and 4 goes into 8 2 times. All right, so 12 over 8 is equivalent to 3/2, right? These are our equivalent fractions. So you always want to simplify. All right, so 3/8 times 4, or 4 over 1, is equal to 3/2. So, when you're doing this work, you might want to do this off to the side. So here is where our problem, right? So before we did this fraction work, we know we have to do the multiplication first because of PEMDAS. So 3/8 times 4 is 3/2. So we're going to go ahead and put that right here as our answer. Okay, so we're down to 3/2 divided by 2/3 plus 1/5. So now we're going to have to do what? Well, we're going to have to deal with the division. Remember, all multiplication and division is going to come first before any addition. So how do we divide fractions? Well, I'm going to explain that in just one second. But first, I'm going to show you this, which is an invitation to support this YouTube channel. Now, my YouTube channel is all about trying to make math clear and understandable and interesting, but really my main goal is to encourage people to stick with mathematics. There's so many people that struggle in math, and the number one reason people have a tough time in math is because they think in their brain that they're bad in math. They have these little kind of like programming running on, like, "Hey, I'm just terrible in math." People use these phrases. You got to be very careful with what the language you speak to yourself, right? Your self-talk, if you will. If you're like, I'm bad at math, that's a very powerful negative statement. And I'm going to tell you, you may not think that I'm telling you the truth, but I am telling you the truth. There is no such thing as a person that's bad in math, okay? So to learn math, to be successful in mathematics, what you need is encouragement, right? You need self-belief, like, hey, can I actually do this? And if I was tutoring you or teaching you in math, I don't really care if all you know is 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. If that's your starting point, no problem, right? We're going to take it from there, and then we're going to climb this ladder of math skills to teach you all the math you need to know. And we're going to take it literally one skill at a time. Now, is this going to take time? Of course, it's going to take time. Is going from this step or this skill to this skill, could this be challenging? Yes, of course, it can be, but we'll work through it, right? You got to work through these things. So typically, people that struggle in math, they just don't know where they're at on this ladder. They want to learn algebra, but they don't even know basic math. So it's frustrating to be up here when you haven't mastered these steps down there. Okay, so again, there's nothing wrong with your potential to learn mathematics, but it does take time and effort and commitment, and most importantly, clear and understandable math instruction, all right? And that's what I try to do on my YouTube channel. So, in order to kind of reach as many people as possible, because that is my goal, I need your help. And the best way you can support this channel is to hit that subscribe button and then hit that bell notification. And just real quick, for those of you that need to review basic math, we're talking about fractions, order of operations. Check out these two courses. You can find links to those in the description. But the first course is my Math Foundations. This is like a quick basic math review. And then I have my Math Skills Rebuilder course, which I review basic math and then a ton of algebra, geometry, and some other stuff as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the rest of this problem. So we're going back to PEMDAS. Remember, always checking in with this PEMDAS, as we're doing the prompt. So there was no parentheses. Yes, we had one exponent, one power. We did have multiplication and division. We took care of what we saw first, which was multiplication, but we're left with division. So this is the step we're on right now. Okay, so we have 3/2 divided by 2/3. So how do we divide fractions? Well, this is not that difficult. So again, here I have this fraction written with an angled fraction bar, right? It's just a little bit easier to see what to do when you have a horizontal fraction bar. Again, nothing wrong with writing your fractions this way, but try to write them in this manner. Okay, so let's talk about how to divide fractions. So 3/2 divided by 2/3, right? So this is the problem. So the way we divide fractions is we go from a division problem to a multiplication problem. And the way that's going to happen is we're going to flip the fraction to the right of the division symbol. Okay, so here's the division operator. So we're going to flip this upside down. So here, this is 2/3. If I flip it upside down, I'm going to end up with 3/2. But when this gets flipped upside down, this goes from division to a multiplication problem. And I already showed you how to multiply fractions. It's very easy, right? All we have to do is multiply the respective numerators and denominators. Okay, so 3 times 3 is 9, and 2 times 2 is 4. So we have 9/4. Of course, you could write it with an angled fraction bar, but that is the answer. Okay, so that's the answer with the multiplication. So going back to our problem, again, you may want to kind of work off to the side, and just kind of show your steps clearly in terms of what's going on overall in the problem. When we divided 3/2 or 3/2 divided by 2/3, the answer we got was 9/4, right? So if you went from here to here and you're looking at my solution and you don't you got something different, then you need to review how to divide fractions. All right, so now we're down to 9/4 plus 1/5. And there's only one thing left to do here, and that is to add these fractions. Okay, so how do we add fractions? Well, again, I'm going to suggest that you kind of write these with the horizontal fraction bars, but it's not necessary. So we have 9/4 plus 1/5. Okay, so when you're adding and subtracting fractions, this is where people really don't like fractions in terms of my experience. They're like, I don't like fractions, Mr. YouTube Math Man, because you got to deal with that LCD stuff and all that craziness. Well, that only applies to when you're adding and subtracting fractions. You see, you can add or subtract fractions right away if you have the same denominator. In other words, if I had 9/4 plus 1/4, I can add these fractions because the denominators are the same. I just simply add the respective numerators. So in this case, this would be 9 plus 1 or 10/4. Then I can simplify. But here we don't have the same denominator. So we're going to have to find a common denominator. Matter of fact, we want the lowest common denominator. All right, so there is a lot to learn. And I can tell you right now that even though some of you out there are like, hey, Mr. YouTube Math Man, the LCD is 20. Yes, you are right. Okay, the lowest common denominator is 20. But what if I gave you these fractions, right? What if I give you 9/408 plus 52? Okay, what's the LCD there? Well, at this point, a lot of you are like, well, I don't really care what the LCD is because I'm going to leave your video. I'm not doing that problem. Well, finding the LCD, there's actually like a full procedure, and I teach all of this stuff in my math courses, my math foundation, my math skills rebuilder course. Also, I have a ton of videos on my YouTube channel. Matter of fact, I have like, I think we're pretty close to 3,000 videos on all of these subjects. So you can search my channel. All right, but in this particular case, the lowest common denominator is 20. 20 is the lowest number that both 4 and 5 divide into. All right, so if you understand that, well, that is fantastic. But what does that mean? Okay, well, the LCD is 20. What it means is that we want to change these denominators such that the denominators are 20, right? So instead of 4, we want a 20. Instead of 5, we want a 20. So how do we change a 4 and a 5 into a 20? Well, we have to write equivalent fractions. All right, so if I want to change a 4 into a 20, well, no problem. All I have to do is divide or multiply by 5, okay? So 5 times 4 is 20, so that's fantastic. But if I multiply the denominator by 5, I also have to multiply the numerator by 5 as well. So 5 times 9, of course, is going to be 45, and 5 times 4 is 20. And then to change a 5 into a 20, well, I can multiply by 4. So 4 times 5 is 20. But we also have to multiply the numerator by 4 as well. So 4 times 1 is 4. Okay, so we're pretty much done because now we have two fractions with the same denominator, 20. So all we have to do is literally add the respective numerators. So 45 plus 4 is 49 over 20. Now at this point, what we have is a final answer. Now you can choose to try to reduce this. You always want to reduce your fractions. This is as simple as it's going to get. But what you don't necessarily want to do, and this is a good tip for those of you that are math students, you need to know how to do this, but don't take this extra step. So when we're talking about fractions, there's three type of fractions. Okay, you have a fraction like this, a fraction like this, and then you have like a fraction like this. This type of fraction is called a proper fraction because of the denominator is bigger than the numerator. And this type of fraction is called an improper fraction because the numerator is bigger than the denominator, and this is called a mixed number fraction. So what we can do is write improper fractions as mixed number fractions and mixed number fractions as improper fractions. You need to know how to do that. And the way you do this, for example, 3/2, to write this as a mixed number fraction, you literally just take 2 divided by 3. 2 goes into 3. 1 times 2 is 2, so we have a remainder of 1, so that's 1 and 1/2. Okay, so 3/2 is 1 and 1/2. Now, if I want to take that 1 and 1/2 and turn it into an improper fraction, remember, I want to take this 2 times 1, so that's 2, plus that 1 gets us back to 3/2. So you need to know how to go from an improper fraction to a mixed number and a mixed number back to an improper fraction. But I'm going to tell you right now, I have seen so many sad faces in math tests and exams for students because they'll get the right answer, okay, as an improper fraction. Then they'll be like, hey, I'm going to be a math hero and I'm going to take this and I'm going to divide 49 by 20 to write this as a mixed number fraction, right? They feel compelled to have to do that. Do not take that step unless you're asked to do this, okay? Now you could work with these fractions in a different manner, but typically, you're going to want to just kind of stop with a fully simplified improper fraction if that's what you're working with. All right, so hopefully a lot of you out there, were like, yes, Mr. YouTube Math Man, I remember learning all this stuff way back in 1977. That's when I was learning this, right? You're talking like 40 years ago. So if you're like, yes, I totally forgot all of this, well, it's somewhere back in the recesses of your memory. But again, the big kind of message in this video is that no one is bad in math, right? If you forgot this stuff, no big deal. If you really want to learn it, you can, but you have to start with really strengthening your basic math skills. All right, so with all that being said, I definitely wish you all the best in your math adventures. Thank you for your time and have a great day.